it builds this sense of inclusiveness in your own classroom so the kids don't think it's just all about them. I mean, middle school, high school, they do. Let's be clear. They do think it's all about them all the time, right?
Sure. Right. Well, and in a positive and sometimes a negative social-emotional way, if we can talk about like the social-emotional learning element that's coming into education.
You are listening to the Music Ed Mentor Podcast, where we teach music educators how to build, manage, and grow thriving school music programs and have long and happy careers. Today's episode is 100% practical and applicable knowledge for those of you who get to take students to festival. This could be anything from solo and ensemble festivals or a district honor festival or a state festival. All of these types of performances have commonalities about them. You're taking kids out of school, you're prepping them for some kind of big performance, and there's a lot of logistics involved. Our goal today is to help you streamline a few of these logistics and think about them in ways maybe you haven't thought of before. We're going to have a great time. Festivals are a fantastic tool for recruiting and retaining students and improving their musical skill overall. It's like a little mini tour. Honor festivals and solo and ensemble can help encourage your more advanced musicians while providing others with incentive to improve. It's also a great way to have quantifiable data to help ensure the continuation of your program and the support of your administration. What's not to love? On the other hand, there are lots of risks involved. Students with medical needs, chaperones, buses, timelines. There's plenty that can go wrong. But today we really wanted to address some ideas you maybe haven't thought of when it comes to getting prepped. To help me in my discussion, I've brought in David Knott. He's a music education specialist, professional percussionist, leadership advocate, founder of the Central Pennsylvania Wind Conductors Society, and conductor of the Hershey, Pennsylvania Mozart and Friends Festival Orchestra. With David's help, we're going to address some of the questions you probably haven't thought of, like, should you be concerned about the privacy policies for all those medical forms you just collected from your students? And who are the best people to recruit to be chaperones for the trip? What's the best use of time when you bring in a clinician before a performance? And how can you still provide a quality festival experience when you have no resources for traveling? We'll answer all of these questions and more, but first we have to give a big shout out to Smart Music. Did you know that you can find many resources in addition to this podcast on the Smart Music blog? They're all provided to you by your fellow music educators. Several of our podcast guests have gone on to offer blog posts and freebie downloads on the Smart Music blog. Not only that, but Smart Music also offers you free online training workshops. If you haven't already signed up to get notifications from the Smart Music blog, now is a great time to do so. Just go over to smartmusic.com/blog. While you're there, search for this episode, number 40 of the Music Ed Mentor Podcast, and discover the helpful links and downloads to help in your Festival Prep 2.0. Now, let's get to some ways you haven't considered to be prepped for festival season.
Well, thanks for letting me be here. My name's David Knott, and I'm a middle school band teacher at the Milton Hershey School in Hershey, Pennsylvania. If you don't know anything about our school, you can check us out at mhskids.org. It's a wonderful school and opportunity for reserved students of financially disadvantaged students, and it's a residential school. I've been teaching there for 12 years, been teaching public school, Catholic school, high schools. Prior to that, I've taught adjunct percussion and music therapy classes for about 15 years also in addition, and do a lot of work clinicking and performing in our area. So it's exciting to be here.
Awesome. Well, thanks for coming on. Our entire episode today is all about festivals. And we probably come from different sides of the country. So we probably have different experiences. And I'll tell you right now that I have not taken a group to festival since 2007. And this year I'm looking at taking a band and a choir potentially to festival. The band for adjudication for sure. The choir maybe just to watch. So,
Sure.
and that's not, I haven't been teaching that whole time. I don't want to make it sound like I've been against festivals or anything. It's just
Right.
that I haven't done it. And now I'm in a new state, a new school, and it's a completely different environment. So what's the festival scene like in your neck of the woods?
Well, in central Pennsylvania, we have the PMEA sanctioned festivals, which within driving distance from my area, one school hosts. Sometimes the second school will pick up on that. And that follows all the strict, state guidelines, state rep, and procedures and protocols. And there's a couple different options. There's like a festival version, and there's a little bit more rigorous version as well. And then there's a lot of park festivals, music in the parks, music showcase festivals, and I think there's even a couple others that correlate with Hershey Park or some of the other parks in the area that schools can attend. And but it's not the biggest scene in our area. We find that more of our drive is towards the the honor band festivals, the adjudicated festival that way, where the students try out to be in that all-star band, if you will, which all the states have.
That's really interesting. We don't have any kind of parks festivals in Western Colorado because we don't have any parks necessarily. So we are pretty much all district based. When I taught in Utah, we would take turns hosting festivals. So I played festival host. I was at a brand new school, so I had a big, beautiful auditorium and facility. So I played host to 2 or 3 festivals per year. And we should say festivals are, any time you take kids out of the school to perform, right? So
Sure. There's a wide variety.
Yeah,
of what we can define festival
we
as.
have solo and ensemble festival coming up, and then we have a district festival, and then there are some honor bands and stuff like that, and they all kind of have similarities. But I would love for us to talk about some of the things that music teachers don't normally think about when it comes to festival, those fringe items that might enhance the experience or that people would normally forget about.
Sounds good. I think one of the things that the benefits for these groups and these festivals is we have to just understand that it gives the students a chance to be in front of somebody other than us and hear maybe our words again and bring some valid reinforcement to our teaching and just hopefully ignite the kids to come back and then be sometimes they call it accidental leaders. They come back fired up and now they lead the whole band. They don't even know they're leading it in a way that they hadn't been before. So that alone is so valuable for our students.
Yeah, I totally agree. The value is immense, whether you're taking a group or a small group of kids or a small ensemble or even just individuals. They come back with this greater perspective. And I love that you said it reinforces our own teaching. They keep hearing the same thing over and over from us, especially if we're really strict teachers. I've lost a lot of kids this year who have left band class because I'm a far more strict teacher than their former one was.
Right.
And you know what? I'm okay with that because I would rather have them do it right.
Well, right. And everyone has their own different teaching style. So, the transition that's a whole nother topic, the teaching transition. So we won't dive into that tangent, but it does happen. And, we'll just call, they didn't leave. They're just on a leave of absence. They're taking a break.
Right.
Eventually they'll find their way
reevaluating their options. Right. Okay. So let's talk about why some people maybe don't take kids to festival or what some of the risks are. I can imagine, I just participated in a honor band festival a couple of months ago, and some of my fellow teachers had kids with medical issues, with emotional issues that they had to deal with.
Right.
And so there is some risk in that, taking the kids out of school What are some other risks
Sure.
that there are other than, getting a bad rating?
Right. Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest fears. And I think we all understand that one. Probably don't have to talk too much of the fear of my band not being good enough. We can maybe talk about that towards the end. But you're talking here about the health needs, and that was a big conversation that has come up. I'm on the board for officers for the district in our area for the state honor band festivals, and that's conversation that's come up with the housing and different needs of different students that are maybe a little bit more unique. And I think that is definitely a fear. And I have, we get back to school next week, we have a college festival. So we have a middle school festival supported by a local college. And, getting all those medical forms together, I'm not allowed, because I'm a residential school, to turn in my medical forms. I must hold them all the time because of confidentiality. And that's something I think that we don't think about is what are the different protocols with kids' medical information? Who are we getting that information for? And when you go to a festival, if it's a housing festival with med forms, we need to remember to probably get those forms back because there's confidential information. And I don't think we all think of it that way. I have to be in a residential school. I'm a little bit different. So that's one of the things I think we definitely have as a concern is what do I do with all that paperwork?
Yeah, I think that is something that we forget about is that there are very strict privacy concerns along that route of, having kids' personal private information. Do you bring along chaperones to help out at all?
At my school, we have a group of employees called student assistant employees. They work like after school events. They're a whole part of the division of our school. They're all full-time employees or part-time employees. So I always take an adult with me, especially when we go to like audition festivals, like a county band festival that's coming up where I'm adjudicating, evaluating one of the rooms. I make sure there's an extra adult with me so that when my kids are done auditioning, I can't sit with them. So I have somebody there. This actually just came up. We host a festival, a band performance evaluation festival. And that is one of the things that this year I've had asked that if a school's bringing more than one band, that they bring another teacher with them to help monitor their students in the auditorium while they're listening. Because it's a lot of challenge to put that on a parent if there's a disciplinary action, kid not behaving well, and have a parent deal with it. So we have asked if they're bringing two bands to have a second teacher with them that can carry the information of the school and the acceptable protocols. So something to think about is definitely trying to bring somebody else with them if it makes sense.
Yeah, that's a great idea because teachers usually have all the appropriate clearances for that kind of thing. And they probably don't mind taking a day out of their classroom to come and help out at a festival. I love that idea.
Yeah, especially like if you're a middle school cat going out to a festival, what a great opportunity for your high school band director to build a relationship with the middle school kids where he doesn't have to be or she has to be teaching them or running a rehearsal. They can just have that one-on-one FaceTime and build some rapport with them by just sitting with them and getting to know them a little bit, if possible.
I love that idea. So when you bring parents along, it's important too that you give them some kind of training. I feel like we can invite chaperones or parents to come and help, but we need to give them a lot of support to make sure that they know how to handle the situation, even if it is another teacher, making sure that there is some clear delineation of responsibilities and so they know kind of what to expect. At my school now, of course, bands haven't gone to festival in several years, so parents are completely unfamiliar. So I'm having to do a lot of that support and teaching. Do you guys have any kind of protocols at your school for training chaperones? Or I know we have a very extensive process for volunteers to get approved to go anywhere with our students. So what's that like in your area?
Well, in our area, all parents that assist with the school have to have clearances. The school where my children go, if I want to chaperone, I have to get all my normal Act 34, 151, child abuse clearances, all the state clearances as a teacher. I obviously can't take the ones from my school. I have to do them all again and get on file. So any teacher that chaperones has to go through that process. Our school district, not where I teach, where my kids go, they do help with that. I think they do cover some of the cost, but that's a thing. But the place where they're getting trained is by like booster groups and stuff. So you're kind of learning that tribal knowledge in our schools where it gets passed down. And where I'm working, I have set of protocols. Like when I have the student assistance people come in, I let them know very clearly, here's what we're going to do. Here's your role. This is where you're going to do it. This is where you're going to meet them. And I just spell it all out for them and take, the complete ownership of, I have to tell them every little detail because they're not going to know exactly how I want it to be done to make it be smooth.
Awesome. So are there financial concerns alongside these, child care concerns that maybe prohibit people from going to festivals?
Well, I adjudicate a park festival, and I've taken my band to a park festival. And to take my jazz band or my wind ensemble, I'm talking about $700 to $800 to go. And that's not even necessarily including the park fee, depending on how many kids I take. Since we're the Milton Hershey School, we're able to go to the park at a differently than another school. But there's a lot of financial investment to a festival, and making sure that you're getting the most out of that festival can really inhibit a program. If you don't have $800 in your budget to go to a festival, that can really deter you away. But there should be other options for you as a music educator to find opportunities for that. And maybe later we can talk about some strategies to combat that.
Now, let's just talk about it now. What are so if I don't have the money in my budget to take kids to festival, because it is expensive, and maybe I'm at a school where I don't feel comfortable asking the students to pay for it. What are some other options where they can still have a great experience without all of that funding?
Well, I think, one of the things that we've done in our area is we've hosted our own festivals, and just with some area bands, we bring our groups together and we find some high school or college people who are willing to come in and volunteer their time to evaluate our programs. It takes the financial risk out of the program. You're just taking yourself away for the day, and we're just all being willing to do it ourselves. And you don't necessarily get the state sheet behind it, but you can develop your own rubric that's appropriate to your program and start getting your kids into that mindset of festivals. And I think that's a great way to take maybe a program that isn't a festival program, as they're not regularly doing it, and kind of break the ice. Just do a band exchange, play for each other. One thing that I've been doing is running a virtual band festival where we reach out to other programs and we record ourselves, we send them rubrics and evaluate in the class, listen to the other bands. And for any band program that has to include writing in their curriculum, here's an opportunity to get the students to write in the classroom. You have that writing element. And it also gives an opportunity. I've done virtual band festivals with bands from other states. So we've been able to use New York State's band rubric with our kids, even though we're in Pennsylvania, so we can change it up that way and start to build relationships with band beyond our borders of our classroom and our county, but into other states. I've been contacted by a guy I think he's in the Cayman Islands. He read something I was talking about with virtual band festival. How awesome is it that a band from Hershey, Pennsylvania is going to be able to exchange with a group in the Cayman Islands? And it's just it seems like so minor just to send an MP3 recording, but it can have lasting ignition to your students.
Yeah, and with the video and audio capabilities these days, I mean, you can get a pretty decent recording of your band, just have them on the stage and use an iPhone, upload that video and share it and ask for a video in exchange. You could even do live streaming, like right now we're recording this on Zoom.
Yeah.
And that's
Right.
totally, it's free and it's a useful tool. And yeah, I love that idea of being able to exchange with other groups. It builds this sense of inclusiveness in your own classroom, so the kids don't think it's just all about them. I mean, middle school, high school, they do. Let's be clear. They do think it's all about them all the time, right?
Sure. Right. Well, and in a positive and sometimes a negative social emotional way, if we can talk about like the social emotional learning element that's coming into education. And, in our school, as a residential school, we perform our concerts for the student sponsors if they can come in. But the main part of our audience is the student body. So we're playing for students who choose not to be in a music ensemble. That's a tough room sometimes. Now, we have a good community and supportive, and their friends are supportive of them. And, my programming is a little bit driven by my audience, which I think all our programming should be. So, we do heavy, important stuff, but sometimes we got to do things that the audience understands. But this is a way for the kids to know that there are other kids doing this outside, and they can see, hey, this is really cool. There are other people doing it. I have now new connections, and they can feel really great about themselves, socially, because I've now connected with somebody 500 miles away.
Awesome. Okay, so we've talked about some of the logistic necessities of having a successful festival, having chaperones, making sure they're trained, making sure you know all the medical and information about your students, making sure that you have a really clear schedule, I think is extremely valuable, with a minute by minute itinerary, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, that's
like for the one that I have coming up, just be very clear to all stakeholders of this is when the bus has to pick up, when it has to leave. You just have to go into that detail. You can't assume it's going to work.
Yeah, I totally agree. And giving those chaperones and those other teachers, if you can get another teacher to come along, maybe someone else in your cluster, another music teacher to come along would be great. But giving them a lot of support so that they can do their job successfully and feel supported. So let's talk about musical performance and how to make sure that our groups, whether they're individuals or small ensembles or large ensembles, are musically prepared to go. And I think that doing that video exchange or MP3 exchange, like we just talked about, is a great step in prep. Even if, it's not the main deal, it's a great way to prep our students, don't you think?
It's the perfect start, because you don't have to really impede on anyone's time to get to your program. You can send it to them virtually. They can listen. They can provide feedback back to them. They could do, like, we talked about the Zoom idea. They can even just take their iPad or their phone and just do a video and send the video of them listening to the recording and talking about it. There's so many ways that they can take a simple recording and enhance back. Another great thing that I like to do is try and bring somebody else in the room to get in front of the kids. Not necessarily on the podium. That's always good too. But even if just somebody in the room to give them the point of view as the clinician for the festival. And if they can, talk about the rubric with them, that's even better. But part of the reason I like to have somebody come in and not get on the podium, because I do like to take an opportunity to have that clinician maybe talk to me a little bit about my gesture with them. So if they're not responding to the gesture, for them to call attention to it, or if it's somebody who's a really masterful conductor, to maybe suggest another gesture. So the students see that me as a teacher, I'm still learning the whole time too. So it's about all of us, not just about that there's not a wall between the conductor and the students, but we're always all growing together.
I love that idea. I wish that I could bring somebody in once a month to just watch me teach and provide me educational advice, but especially heading into festival, you're right. Showing that we as directors can be open and prepared for growth, just as we should help our students want to be. So doing an exchange, bringing in a clinician, getting people to to do that. That's all kind of musically helping set them up for a successful festival. But we need to be mentally and emotionally preparing our students for festival as well. Are there some ways that you've seen that done or do it yourself?
Well, one thing that I like to do is I like to change the setup of my room. So what I did, when I was getting ready to festival season, is I've just shifted everything. So instead of the normal way it's set up, it's still the same seating, but the room's just aligned different. So when they come in our festival prep, they're going to walk into the room. It's going to look different just to reignite the learning process. I think it's called the Hawthorne effect. I read it in a book about productivity. When you change the lighting in a room, people think they're being evaluated, so they re-engage in a different way. So by shifting the room, it's going to allow for my students to go, oh, this is different. I'm going to focus differently, and I've reignited them. And of course, always trying to get the kids on the stage to play, just to get them out of the normal setting and environment, to get them used to going into a new place. I had a colleague one time had a band selected to play at the state convention, and he would take his band to different rooms in the building to get them used to playing in low ceiling rooms, and always tried to change up the environment so that when they get there, they wouldn't feel nervous.
Nice. So some of the things that I've done, not just in festival prep, but any kind of performance prep, is I do record my students and then I make them watch themselves. And then I will play their recording for some of the other classes. So just internally, I take my vocalists. I have just started this middle school choir. I'm putting choir in air quotes here, because these middle school kids are not used to singing a lot. This concept of choir is kind of new to them. The only choir they've really known is when we do mass, and it's not the same thing at all. So just trying to introduce them and then get them comfortable singing. So right before their Christmas performance, we went Christmas caroling around to the different classrooms. I'll even take my little kids and do, like you said, that friend of yours does. We'll go sing in the cafeteria, and then we'll go sing outside against the wall, and then we'll go sing in the teacher's lounge where it's all nice and close. And it's great for repetition, but like you said, it awakens something else in their brain. It flips a switch, and it actually helps the music sink in to their brain a little better. Right,
because they change that environment. It just gets them to hear it new or physically do it new. Talk about the recordings. One thing I think is really valuable when we think about recording our groups, sometimes maybe the mindset is, okay, we're going to start at the beginning or record at the end and listen to the whole thing. But if we take kind of an idea of a micro session or a micro recording session and just using that recording constantly, we're going to work on the crescendo at measure 58. And if you could capture that multiple times and playback, and if you can directors can set themselves up so that they can get some immediate playback to the students, that can help get that mindset to them. And I think another thing with the mindset, we're talking about getting them mentally ready. How often are we using the terminology that they're going to be evaluated? We have our rehearsal language, but looking at the rubric language, and it correlates so well with what they do in reading and writing and math, with if your states are high into state testing, just to get used to using the language and help them think about it from that standpoint. Even though it may feel a little bit robotic and not natural music expression, they're 12, 13, 14. It's okay. I think it's okay to kind of have I don't want to say contrived, but maybe a standard. We're going to do this crescendo this way every time. Let them find their natural musical expression after they've learned kind of a standard one.
Awesome. And then, of course, when we're not doing full ensemble, but maybe solo and ensemble with solos and small groups, having them perform for the class and using that rubric language and having the rest of the class using the actual rubric to evaluate that student. It provides something for them as evaluators and some information for preparing that, individual student as well.
Yeah, there's a couple programs that you can use with the iPad. I've used them for assessments. And I know, obviously there's a major one that we can use that will record everybody and it gives some feedback. But getting kids, even like on a Google Classroom, to video themselves and let the students give feedback with parameters, of course, to look at the rubric and feedback in, or use a program like Padlet where students can upload comments about the rehearsal according to the guidelines. So I think there's a lot of ways to get the students to use the language themselves. And even trying, if it's possible, to have like a little mentor program where your older kids, if they can get with the younger kids in rehearsal, and almost do side-by-sides rehearsal where if you get your 8th graders with your 5th graders, or your high school band with your middle school band, where they can come down and sit next to the kid and then clinic them, almost kind of like a pair and share moment where the high school kid can say to the middle school kid, think about your articulation and get the terminology in the ear.
Yeah, awesome. So just tons of great information on getting your group mentally, physically, and logistically prepared, and musically prepared, of course, as well, for festivals. Hopefully we gave our listeners something that they haven't thought of before. So our challenge to you, listeners, is to try something new in your festival prep this year, whether it's doing a share video with somebody on the other side of the country, or whether it is bringing in a clinician to watch you instead of just work with your kids. Or if you haven't trained your chaperones, to just have like a chaperone night where you can sit them all down and let them know how it's going. So we're also going to have a great download for you. So make sure that you check out the episode page at smartmusic.com/blog and find this episode so that you can grab that download, which will help you as well. So David Knott, thank you for coming on.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
I love episodes like this, when I get to steal the ideas my guests bring to the table. I hope you found a few nuggets of your own to use in your upcoming festival preparations. To help you even more, I created a free download for you, and you can find it on the show notes page. It's 12 ways to mentally prepare your students for festival. Remember, students can be so finicky, emotional, and overly prepared or underprepared, and really take festival experience out of hand. By using some of these steps to mentally prepare them, not only will you have an easier experience, their experience will be better and last in their memories for years to come. A big thanks to Randall Standridge, composer extraordinaire, and some of the other members of the Middle School Band Directors Facebook group for contributing to this list. You can snag the download on the show notes page for this episode. Again, that's number 40 on the Smart Music blog. I also wanted to give you a heads up that pre-registration is now open for the 2019 International Music Education Summit, with more than 50 presentations by master educators like David Knott, workshops, panel discussions, and even some live streaming musical performances. You won't find a better value for professional development hours than this. The pre-registration price is only $47. And when you use the code podcast at checkout, you get an additional 20% off. That's just my way of thanking you for being a loyal listener. Remember to rate, subscribe, and share this podcast with your music educator friends. We'll be back in a couple more weeks. Until then, my dears, keep teaching on.